Clark, here's Simone Thurtell.
Thanks very much, Clinton. What a great game to start off our NBL season. As you can hear, the anthem being played here at Etzer Park in Adelaide. All is in readiness for our final in the Opens of the Netball Nationals between South Australia and Victoria. Before we go to the match, let's take a look at the semi-final results and how both teams made it through to the final. In Semi 1, South Australia accounted for New South Wales. Final score there, 60-53. Then in semi-final 2, Victoria took on Tasmania and came away 32-goal winners, 76-44. Well, as you can hear, the anthem's wrapping up. The players are about to take to court. Let's go to your commentators for the afternoon, Steve Rebillard and Anne Sargent.
Thank you, Simone. Good afternoon again, everyone. And an easy and logical starting 7 selection for South Australia with Borlase and Delaney in goals, working ahead of Hodge, Sanders and Squire. And when you throw in Harvey and Sutter, you realise it's a Thunderbirds lineup, except for Borlase, and the coach is Jackie Bly. The 2 Victorians missing that they would like to have are Sherelle McMahon and Simone McInnes, but they line up with Illich and Garbutt as the circle defenders. And wing defence and centre, tough selections, and they've gone with Melanie Vivian and Nick Richardson. There's Harvey, South Australian captain, and we've got Abby Tier and Jocelyn Bryant in goals for Victoria. And underway.
South Australia starting with the first centre, but being disposed of the ball by Victoria, who had created a turnover early days.
Some really interesting selections in that Victorian 7 that we can work through during this first quarter. Jan Cross and on that side, and Janelle Derrington on this, controlling the most important match of the Nationals as we draw to the end of a pretty exciting week in Adelaide. So Nick Richardson winning the centre position ahead of Susan Howie. And
yes, well, they shared honours yesterday. They shared honours yesterday in the semi-final. Howie getting the start and then Richardson coming on at half-time. I did think she had a fair bit of impact when she came from the bench. She was strong and tough, and I suspect she's out there for her defensive qualities.
Well, that's certainly how Jane Searle reads it. She wants Nick Richardson's prowess in defence. And Eloise Southby, we talked yesterday about how she's been unwell all week, still a bit weak. And so she's gone with Bryant on screen now, and Abby Tier. And Victoria have made the good start.
Victoria, I think, has drawn strength from the result in the 21 and under final. And, of course, just recently in the basketball, they've decided we'll make it 3 in a row.
That South Australia lose. Yeah, it hasn't been a good day yet for South Australia. Went down in the 21s, went down in the basketball in Perth. What about now? Well, they're hot favourites here. And we're going to have a new champion because New South Wales won it last year in Canberra. South Australia won it the year before, and Victoria the year before that. So they've had it between them, the top 3 states, in the last 3 years, but well spread. Borlase. And working with Delaney. A special presentation before this final began to the Australian gold medal winning Commonwealth Games team, and the crowd stood as one to applaud them. They're awfully proud of their national team.
Yes, all but Carissa Toms, who of course had to return to England with her husband Richard, wasn't able to attend today, but such a warm reception for an historical team.
Bryant, Tier, O'Donnell.
Abby Tier swinging the left hand nicely between the South Australian defensive jaw. She had a fine game, really plays the space nicely.
And Bryant there bursting between Sutter and Harvey. They look ready to play, Victoria, and they're 4-2 up. 3.5 gone.
Just having another look at the challenge there from Melanie Vivian, who throws herself into work just a little bit late to the ball there on the floor, and Harvey eventually comes away with a penalty. I was just thinking, Steve, I chatted with Shelley O'Donnell after yesterday's semi-final, and we discussed the possibility of Southby not being able to take the court today, and Shelley said, well, I'm the next goaler in. So would you like to see that?
Bryant. Well, it's Also interesting that Garbutt has got the start when she was only called late into the squad following the withdrawal of Peter Kennedy. So here's Garbutt, goal defence working. And Victoria 5-4. So Garbutt's played well to make this team.
She has. She can be a costly player, but for all of that, she's also tenacious and she'll ride Delaney harder. They need to take Delaney out of the game. I think she's been one of the match winners in attack for them, and certainly to silence her would help their cause.
Tia. Sutter. Oh. Hop.
That's footwork. It wasn't pretty either. She was trying to hold her balance, but it was actually a landed foot that lifted and regrounded as she did that.
Sanders, Delaney, Hodge. How can the Victorian midcourt contain the pace of Sanders, Hodge and Squire? That's one of the questions to be posed throughout this match as Borlase drains another, and 5-all. They've quickly settled.
Bearing in mind, this is the first time these two teams have met in the championships, as was the case in the 21 and under final. New South Wales victorious in that one to the tune of 55-51, but it's very difficult for the top teams to come through an easy run in the draw and then have to, number one, make selection decisions, and then two, win personal contests when they've had no previous experience through the challenge. Great take there by Sutter.
Coming out a la Liz Ellis.
I think she'd prefer us now to say a la Sutter.
Oh, yeah. I think she'd still regard it as a compliment.
Yes, you'd have to. Good pressure there as Sutter comes out. Great position inside the ball.
And having been 3-0 down, they're now in a position to take a 7-5 lead.
Ooh, no attention on Delaney. They were hugging Borlase. She was the shooter nearer the post. It was a 2-on-1 from the Victorian defenders, and Delaney makes them pay.
South Australia by 2. Sanders, Harvey, Delaney, Hodge.
South Australian team only coming together as a unit the night before last in time for the semi-final playoffs. Previous throughout the week, they've been conducting work commitments as well as slotting in the major games. I guess the face of netball, the changing face of netball, to see players juggle work experience with nationals, and I guess when you're a home state, far easier to manage it.
I guess the other thing to consider is, Sanders, Harvey, Sutter, all having been to Kuala Lumpur, and they didn't want to be in camp for the whole week. Happy to play, but not to make the kind of commitment they usually would have to, and understandably.
Well, smart decisions by South Australian management. The coach happy to accept that, and why wouldn't you when you've got the credentials of these players on offer? Why would you snub them and say, no, we can't do it that way? Flexibility important nowadays.
Borlase, Sanders for 9-6.
Delaney 6 for 7, so she's in sweet form early on.
O'Donnell needs to fire up Victoria. Sutter gets a sniff. Victorian possession, and O'Donnell it'll be. Richardson. Lots of class on the bench for Victoria if they need to go there. Susan Howie with plenty to offer in the midcourt. Stacey Crane in defence.
So I suspect the plan may well be that if they think they can draw some match play out of Southby, that if they can stay in contention, you might well see her come into the match to try and run it home for them. They certainly need to be able to combine the less experienced players with her strength.
Jackie Blythe, South Australian coach, on the left there. And Mark Ango this year coaching the under-21s.
Yes, Mark Ango, of course, is head coach at the Institute, having a lot to do with that age bracket of players and the follow-on to coach them at Nationals. Unfortunately for her, they dipped out to New South Wales. Jane Searle there, coach for Victoria, former Australian defender, part of the 1983 Australian team to win the world title in Singapore.
That's strange. You should remember that, Anne. Oh, you were there.
Just a stat that sprang to mind.
Victorian possession, and don't they need one here? They've been outscored 11-3, Victoria, since taking an early 3-0 lead. O'Donnell. Bryant should convert here.
Looking at the stats to date, Bryant on 100% with 5 from 5. Abby Tier, though, a little quiet, only 40% early days in the Open final. Has had the same amount of opportunities as Bryant, but just lacking the radar.
Hodge caught with a held ball. Good sign for the Victorian defence. O'Donnell. Oh, Vivian runs it down. It's South Australian ball now, turnover. And Squire to take it. 5.5 left in the first. Pace is on. Delaney gets one in the back.
Goal third, up near the transfer. Beside.
That's the third penalty, Steve, against Narelle Garbutt, so if you want to keep an eye on that to be of use.
A strange turnover there from South Australia. Illich, the only one with eyes to the ball, it seems. Here's O'Donnell. Tier. Shooting from long range. Truly.
Well, that was a brilliant goal from Abby Tier. It lifts her stats to 50%, her third of the quarter, 3 from 6. And if you wanted to lift, that certainly was one that would bring the confidence straight through.
Harvey almost daring her to shoot from there, and she did.
Oh, nice roll, but Harvey too quick.
Harvey gets one back.
Well, it's a great idea from Bryant, the roll of the post. When she started the move, had the space, but Harvey just so fast, she shut it down from the far side of the court.
Well, Delaney and Garbutt are continuing the battle, and Garbutt snaffles one.
Tit for tat down there.
Yeah.
Actually, it's penalty for intercept. It's more Garbutt that we've got to keep the eye on. If she can keep the penalty count down and keep that sort of energy up, then she will cause problems for Delaney.
A little bit of a comeback here from Victoria. I'd like to get a couple more in a row. Tier.
Classy work outside the circle from Shelley O'Donnell, who had the patience to allow the shooters to reoffer, and then the sense just to drop it low and near so that Tier could come onto it.
Contact. Wing defence out. Next to the wing defence.
And Jan Cross setting his penalties. Garbutt has given 3, but has taken an intercept and guilty of 2 turnovers.
Push goalkeeper in the back.
So the right-hand side of that ledger she'd like to see built.
Oh, Squire just sticks the hand out, and it stayed there.
I think this is a really important match for Peter Squire, apart from the obvious thing of winning a national title for South Australia. There is the chance with the retirement of Simone McInnes to really state her case for a defensive position in the Australian squad and ultimately the team, as is the case for Jackie Delaney, who has been in great form throughout these championships.
12-9 South Australia.
Sanders over the top, and you see Illich bounce off Borlase, who does a little bit hold her space and cross the arms to protect herself.
Richardson threads it across court to Tier. Richardson's got the height on Sanders. Have to make use of that. Sanders is quicker than every other player in Australia, just about. Richardson. Bryant. And number 10 for Victoria. So it looked like they might have been overwhelmed in the middle stages of this quarter, and they haven't.
No, to their credit, they're well in contention for this match. And I know, to be honest, there was a tiny fear factor in the Victorian camp that things might blow out on them. So incredible is the reputation of this South Australian side, and so impressive has been their lead up to this match. But Victoria have lifted a notch when you consider McInnes isn't there, McMahon is on the sidelines watching, and Southby too on the bench. There are few holes to fill, and they've risen well.
Nevertheless, it's SA by 3. Under 2 to go till the first break. So they've won both basketballs, men's and women's. The Crows back-to-back. What about national championships?
Well, they're season campaigners with the ticker tape parades, aren't they? They've had 2 in Adelaide, 1 for their success in the National League, and then the other, of course, as part of the Commonwealth Games team, and the key to the city.
There's some silverware in Adelaide. Oh, beauty. Delaney.
10 from 12 for Jackie Delaney, and she continues, as has been the pattern in recent games, to dominate for South Australia. Look at this one, so balanced. A lovely flick out of the wrist. That is one contest worth watching. Richardson and Sanders, neither will give any quarter. Both tough customers.
Where she is. Yes.
Last minute, first quarter, 14-11 South Australia. And against Harvey. Here, perhaps working with the advantage of Harvey and Sutter not having played on it too often.
No, they wouldn't. Tia's been at the Institute this year, and she's come through the 21 and under ranks for Victoria and has a big ticket on her. She's a very talented young player, a nice mover.
Ball A's. Stutters, shoots, goals, and 15-12. Time for one more. Victoria get a hurry on. Bryant, Tia, O'Donnell to Tia. Nice move. Harvey ping for distance. Timekeeper gets out of his chair. We reckon 7 seconds to go, and that's going to be pretty much on the money. Hodge, Delaney, better pull the trigger. Not in time. That is not a goal. And so we've got a nice, tight final on our hands here at Etsa Park, with the host state narrowly in front. But Victoria will take some heart from their first quarter effort. South Australia leading it 15-13. Well, how did they get here? Courtesy...
Battles between South Australia and New South Wales have always been intense, and the first semi-final match was no different. With both teams boasting numerous National League players, many of whom had met weeks earlier in the grand final, the skill level was high. The goals came fast and furious at both ends of the court. At the first break, there was nothing in it, the South Australians just ahead by 1. Harvey and Sutter were inspirational in defence for South Australia. Ellis and Williams were matching them at the other end. Nerida Stewart's range started to falter for New South Wales, and it was a window of opportunity South Australia didn't pass up. By the half-time break, they'd stretched their lead to 7. The physical nature of the match continued in the third quarter, but it was the South Australians who seemed to be handling conditions the best. Going into the final 15 minutes of the match, it was looking like national champions New South Wales were not going to get the opportunity to defend their title. Everything the Blues threw at the South Australians, the home team handled with ease, the parochial local crowd cheering them home to the final whistle. The final score, South Australia 60, New South Wales 53. In semi-final 2, Victoria took on Tasmania. Despite losing big-name players McMahon, McInnes and Kennedy, Victoria was still overwhelming favourites. The girls from the Apple Isle started well, keeping pace with their more experienced counterparts, but at the 8-minute mark, Victoria had had enough. They put the foot down, and by first quarter break, were out by 11. Gun Victorian shooter Eloise Southby had been on the bench for the entire tournament because of a stomach bug. She made her first appearance in the second half of the semi-final and immediately made an impact, shooting 83% in the third quarter and extending her team's lead to 27. The fourth quarter was a mere formality, but the Tasmanians continued to fight. It had been a wonderful tournament for the girls in green, but their run was coming to an end. O'Donnell, Tier and Southby guiding the Victorians into the finals with a 76-44 victory.
Obviously, South Australia and New South Wales, they had a great tussle earlier. We didn't care who we were going to play. We haven't played either of them this week, which is really strange. Usually we've played them before we meet them in the finals, but we've watched a fair amount of them, and I think that, you know, the girls we've built through the week, and I think we haven't really decided on the combination ourselves, so we'll have to think about that tonight.
The teams come back out on court, and that was the story of how they got to the final, and I think Shelley O'Donnell alluding there to the format that's created a few questions here. Not every team gets to play each other. Some play each other twice, some don't play each other at all. Let's have a look at the shooting stats from the first quarter.
Jenny Borlase on fire with 100%, 5 from 5, but not having as much possession as Jackie Delaney, who's dominated in goals for South Australia with 10 from 12 at 83%. For Victoria, Jocelyn Bryant put up 7 from 8, and Abby Tier 6 from 9 at 66%. So the accuracy there from Bryant. Tier, with ample access to the ball, just needs to lift across the remainder of the match.
Harvey in plenty of space. Back to Squire. And we've got replacements. Southby is on for Jocelyn Bryant. So Jane Searle hasn't waited too long to play what she hopes is a trump card.
Well, I'm a little surprised at the timing, particularly given Bryant's stats in the first quarter. And I guess I find a little difference between 3/4 of a match and a full game, because if she wasn't right to start 3/4, we'll test her. I guess Searle just hoping it'll hold and trying to strengthen up the back.
The other quandary for Jane Searle is that, let's suppose Southby's only good for half a game. There goes another one of her subs. I mean, she can put Bryant back on, but it limits her possibilities with the mid-court.
Yes, that's right. So she's made the gamble early, and with no reason not to think that McMahon's not up to it. She's certainly produced some brilliant netball from Victoria in recent years. It's all Delaney for South Australia, and perhaps in part due to the Thunderbird combination, they're finding Delaney more often than they are Borlase.
Southby, Richardson.
Little disorganised, the Victorian shooting circle. Southby slow to find her way back into the circle, and Tia reluctant to make the first offer and the commanding lead.
Richardson.
Oh, great shot over Tia. That's the 7th for the match and lifts her stat to 70%. So from 66 in the first quarter, she's starting to put it up there.
Here's Hodge. Borlase skirts around Richardson. Hodge again.
Hodge, Steve, another who must be sniffing out a place in the national squad.
Do we know Clarissa Tom's plans?
No, not of this moment. A few of them pretty quiet after Commonwealth Games, I think just reflecting in the glory and enjoying the moment. And I suspect we'll have all those players, bar Simone McInnes, announced in the squad, and then a few fresh faces to join them, and then perhaps some considerations made across summer.
Southby gets her first. Victoria down by the 3. Hodge. Oh, Sanders nearly fell, but Hodge knew she'd get up in time.
First penalty against Jackie Delaney for the match, and looking at them overall.
15-8 against South Australia. 4 each in the intercept column, and turnovers, well, about equal. Victoria conceding 10 to South Australia's 9.
South Australia doing well to enjoy the lead with the penalty count working 2-1 against them. O'Donnell wipes it, sees what happens, nothing changed. Over the top to Tia.
Harvey picks up the scraps.
Hodge in too early, then really needed to get out of there, and another offer to be forthcoming, probably from Sanders, but falls off the sideline because of it. In just a little too soon, and Melanie Vivian able to come through onto the ball.
Borlase, Hodge.
Oh, it's open at the back.
Delaney jumps in. Has those for breakfast. And 19-15 South Australia. Southby has not been allowed to be much of a factor yet. Garbutt. O'Donnell, huge workload on the captain.
Well, we talked yesterday about the fact that Tia and Southby probably have had a little time together, and this is a fairly awesome backline to test it against, isn't it, in Sutter and Harvey?
Southby.
Barney's offside.
Oh, that's all Sutter. Took up front position. Just Southby, no chance.
Well, it was more hope than design, that offload to the circle. And I think we shouldn't talk floodgates, but I've just got a feeling that South Australia are yet to build to their maximum.
Illich, Vivian, Borlase. Had a good look, but couldn't legally get hands on ball. O'Donnell and Jenny Borlase off to Melbourne next season.
Yes, she's following her husband there, and the rumours, of course, are rampant. Will it be Kestrels, will it be Phoenix, or will she fly back and forth to Adelaide? Most of the gossip thinks there might be a change of foot, but I tell you what, to try and monitor the movement off season, I think we're going to take over from football in the back pages of the sports section, because Finnan is going to Queensland from New South Wales. Nicole Cusack has a big question mark over her. Borlase Borlase is moving to Victoria. And on it goes. Just looking at Jenny Borlase's stats, 7 from 8 at 87%. She's been the most accurate on court. Jackie Delaney, though, with the volume of shots, almost double Borlase's with 13 from 16. Abby Tier is not contributing much to the game in this quarter. She really is being silenced by Catherine Harvey, and it's making it difficult for Southby to get a combination going with her.
Southby 2 from 2. Abby Tier 8 from 12. And it's 20 to 17, and Victoria can afford to have this margin get out to 5 or 6. They've really got to keep going goal for goal.
That's a second penalty against Jackie Delaney, and she queries it. Oh, and she answers it with the intercept.
So Delaney gives off to Hodge.
Delaney is so dangerous from an out-of-play position, particularly across that transverse line. She just takes off.
Those little smiles, so yeah, I can do that. Don't look surprised, she says.
I'm just watching, good eyes for the ball and what was happening. She gives the turnover to South Australia.
Victoria through Richardson, O'Donnell, Tier. Oh, South Australian hands up everywhere, looking for every possible chance of a turnover. An intercept, Southby from fair range.
Not a convincing shot, but it counts nonetheless. Very flat. Really isn't a great deal of confidence coming from Eloise Southby. They need her to take control and really rise to the occasion, despite perhaps not feeling great. Oh, O'Donnell juggles. Shelley O'Donnell tries to claim the intercept, keep it alive before she goes either offside or out of court. I think she did a pretty fair job of it.
Not sure what she got called for there.
It was an offside call, came from this end. The free pass was taken by Sanders just inside the goal third, but that didn't appear to be the case in the replay.
7 to go in the second. South Australia by 3. Oops. And South Australia to get possession now. Harvey stands there ready. And Harvey will have achieved just about all there is in Australian and world netball. Come up with a win here. Of course, she would have been part of that team 2 years ago that won in Perth.
That's calling the carpenters, isn't it? Build a bigger trophy cabinet.
Southby. Tier.
Contact.
Let's make sure of this one. Tier anchors the right foot. Let's go with the left hand.
Very static in the Victorian shooting circle. We're used to seeing more movement and more speed from them, but it's not flowing. It's a little bit one out at the moment.
Well, we're used to seeing Sherelle McMahon. She's not there this tournament.
Earlier today, New South Wales defeated Tasmania 75-39 to come in third in the Open Division, and I know they go home terribly disappointed that they won't have had the opportunity to play Victoria throughout these championships and really test the seeding out.
Delaney finishes off. So Victoria looking to trim it again to 3 with 5.5 to go in the second.
Southby on target, 4 from 4. They just need to open the pathway to her.
Sanders, Borlase.
Good pressure from Illich to the top of the circle.
Delaney over Garbutt.
Oh, she nails it. Number 17 for Jackie Delaney, 17 from 21. Jackie Delaney so balanced and just comes out so sweetly from the fingers.
Inside the last 5 of the second. O'Donnell. Tier makes a run. Sutter's right with her.
Tier made the run, but Southby never offered. Tier was pulling it away, and Southby never put the drive on towards the ball, so it's still not coming onto the ball.
Tier backs herself with good cause.
And that brings up number 10 for Abby Tier and 21 for Victoria. 3 off the pace.
Oh, Illich kept it in somehow.
Well, she dropped it from the air knowing she was falling, and they were happy to oblige picking up the crumbs. That was better play from Victoria. That had a bit of zing about it. They really haven't let it come out of the hands. Harvey opens up the arm, up it goes, but there's Illich and there's Vivian. Illich drops it to the ground as she falls. Vivian happy to support. And ball ace with little option but to hit the deck.
Illich had to get rid of the ball before a backside hit the deck. It's going to be the first thing to hit the floor. Ball ace.
Instruction inside keeper, shuttle pass, right at the
And the
top.
good work that Illich has been doing over the ball comes undone with an obstruction call.
The teams have been going goal for goal for nearly all of this quarter. So we're still looking at a 3 and 4 goal difference, depending on whose centre pass it is. Vivian. Garbutt arrives. Richardson. Southby.
The space was there behind Sutter, and that's what O'Donnell was trying to signal to Southby, but Southby was really committed to the front position.
Southby's not really into this game yet.
No. She's hesitant to put out a strong first option and then to put out a re-offer. And as a result, there's nobody in command in the circle, both falling off that commitment to take control. So they need a leader in the circle, Victoria.
Contact keeper, shuttle pass.
And that will see Illich out of play. That's her 5th penalty of the match so far. Borlase steps in, the penalty pass or shot. Puts another one on the board for South Australia. 26, they lead Victoria 21, and Borlase with 88% accuracy. Impressive stats given the pressure of the match. And it goes to line up another, but thinks about closer position. Oh, the flick on from Delaney, almost the touch from Garbutt, but that comes off for South Australia as they start to open up a handy lead.
As they often do towards the end of a quarter. And they put the foot down. You only have to relax for a second. So a 6-goal lead, 2 minutes left in the second.
Offside,
O'Donnell. Richardson.
Abby Tear just dancing, trying to keep out of the way. She was early into the circle on her initial lead, and then really just caught trying to get out of the way.
Hodge, ball ace. Delaney gets a knock on the knee, appeals to the umpire, and Victoria play on. Ouch, Richardson and Squire.
Hold time. Wing defence. South Australia wing
Down they
defence,
go.
you're causing.
Sprung floor.
Opposite me.
And the call is causing against Peter
Opposite
Squire.
me.
I think she really was just continuing the momentum from having a go at the ball. That almost was an accidental collision.
Contact. Pass or shot just inside the circle.
90
Inside
seconds
the
left,
circle where you are.
second quarter.
That's Southby's first miss since she entered the game at the end of the first quarter. And the contact call goes against Abby Tear, who still hasn't put herself in an out-of-play position, but it's now advanced down court Harvey with the penalty.
Goal third.
Hodge, ball ace.
Good
Hands
pressure.
up from Illich, yeah.
Once again, Illich really putting in the hard yards from 0.9 metres, the old 3 feet from right on top of the ball, and it's really putting the pressure on Borlase.
Sanders finds Borlase now. They thought it was off, but it was good enough. And 6 the lead. Victoria with a minute to try and take 1 or 2 out of it.
Number 10 for Jenny Borlase, 10 from 11, so she might have been sitting quietly at the back of the line to start, but the accuracy there for her.
Southby.
And here we go, the South Australian machine winding up.
Hodge, Delaney. Everyone's got half an eye towards the timekeeper. Still in his chair, not for much longer. 28-22. Victoria, they got about 7 seconds to get it down there.
Contact, holding, goal defence.
And they will get the shot. Tear. And it doesn't count. It would have if it had dropped, but no addition to the score. And so South Australia at half-time go in with a pretty handy lead of 28-22.